They thought using my land as free parking was harmless right up until I legally sold every one of their vehicles at a public auction. What would you do if your neighbors treated your property like a public lot? And the HOA backed up every step of the way. Welcome to the channel. If you love savage HOA revenge stories, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. My name's Evan, and for the last 5 years, I've lived on a quiet 3-acre parcel at the edge of Pinebrook, Iowa, supposedly calm suburban development just outside city limits. Technically, my land was once part of the original subdivision, built in the early 2000s, but because of how the developer carved things up, and where the main entrance stopped, my home and acreage were never placed under official HOA authority. It's one of those zoning oddities created during a rushed land deal about 15 years ago. And honestly, it had been a blessing, until recently. My house sits at the end of a long gravel drive, bordered by tall oaks and low wooden fencing. The back to acres are mostly open field, with a light, tree-lined flat, quiet and natural. I don't do much with it beyond the occasional barbecue or stargazing night. No kids, just my golden retriever, Buck. A few solar lights flicker along the gravel after sunset. No gnomes, no inflatable Santas, no bright colors to upset picky neighbors. Just a modest 2-story home with tan siding and a metal roof, tucked into what used to be considered the buffer zone between the subdivision and the forest preserve. For years, that's all it was: peaceful, untouched, undisturbed. The HOA knew I existed, They even mailed me a welcome letter when I moved in, quietly noting in small print that my parcel wasn't bound by their bylaws. Occasionally, their newsletters ended up in my mailbox out of habit. Nothing personal. Mostly, they left me alone and I returned the favor. I'd wave to a few board members at the farmer's market or nod at familiar faces during walks through the main neighborhood loop. No issues. No drama that changed last fall. It started so subtly, I almost ignored it. One Friday afternoon, I came home from work and noticed a silver Lexus parked half on my gravel drive and half on my front yard. Assuming someone got lost through their GPS glitch, Ty walked over. On the dashboard sat a business card. Charles Greer, HOA Vice President. That struck me as odd. He had no reason to be there, and he hadn't knocked. Still, I brushed it off. A week later, it happened again. This time, 2 SUVs, parked side by side in the field just past my mailbox. A man in a blue polo with the Pinebrook logo casually waved as I stepped out of my truck. "Overflow parking," he said with a grin, gesturing toward the road. Board meetings slammed. Before I could respond, he walked off, chatting with a woman in heels carrying a tablet. I stood there, stunned. No cones, no signs, no calls, no requests. They'd simply decided my field was convenient real estate. It bothered me, but I didn't confront anyone yet. I told myself it was probably a one-time thing. I didn't want to be that guy over a couple of cars. Then came the harvest fair. That's when everything escalated. The HOA hosted their annual October event hair rides, face painting, food trucks, vendors. They closed the main circle, rented a sound system, even brought in a bounce house company. I had no problem with any of that. Honestly, it seemed nice until the morning of the event. I woke to the sound of tires crunching gravel. Looking out the window, I saw a line of vehicles driving straight through the gate at the bottom of my driveway. Not one, not 3, a dozen SUVs, sedans, minivans lined up like a concert entrance, turned into my field, parking row by row in the dry grass. Headlights flashed as people in pastel cardigans and HOA polos directed traffic like wedding planners. I threw on a sweatshirt and stepped onto the porch. "Hey," I shouted. A woman with a clipboard smiled. "Oh, don't worry, sir. You're not in trouble. We're just using this lot for overflow." The main circle's full. This isn't a lot, I said, pointing down. This is my land. She hesitated, checked her clipboard, then tilted her head. You're Evan, right? 7,821 Ridgeview. I nodded. She smiled again. Right? You're technically non-compliant. Not part of the HOA, but still part of Pine Brook Hollow. That phrase, technically non-compliant, hit me like a slap. I never gave permission for anyone to park here. Her smile tightened. Well, the board voted to use it this once. We assumed you'd be okay with it. It's just today. By then, more cars were pulling in. She turned back to her clipboard and dismissed me. I watched kids spill out with painted faces. Couples carried pumpkin spice lattes and folding chairs. Adults laughed like this was their personal venue. By nightfall, my field was a full parking lot. When it ended, I counted 39 tire tracks, 2 empty beer bottles, a toppled stone marker I'd had for years, torn grass where someone botched a 3-point turn. The next week, it happened again. Then again, baby shower, winter social, spring elections, yard sale. Every time my land became overflow parking, they never asked, never thanked me, never offered compensation. When I politely asked questions, I was brushed off. Temporary access. You're not technically under HOA protection. I put up a private property. No parking sign. Disappeared. I put up another. Gone. They'd grown used to the convenience. It's not allowed it for too long. What started as quiet nature had become a battlefield. I wasn't a neighbor anymore. Was their unofficial parking structure. And I was done staying quiet.